And then Mary, you want to take us off?
Pardon me? I missed it. I had a.
Oh, Mary, do you want to officially open us?
Yes, so our speaker today is uh, Steve Schwartzer. I said that correctly.
Yes.
He's benefits broker, and that Darius knows, and works with, I believe. And he's got a great presentation for us today. I have a feeling that we will have more participants coming. They're just late and getting their lunch to sit down and see our show. Steve, I will turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And if you want to, feel free to record it. If somebody wanted to get here and they couldn't get here, that's fine with me. I have no problems with that. A little bit more about my Dun & Bradstreet is I have spent 30 years, like you, Mary. I've spent 30 years in employee benefits. Not what I initially planned to go into, but it's something that my whole family has been in, is insurance. My dad was a benefit broker and insurance agent. My brother was, until he went into government, and he became the deputy insurance commissioner for the state of Wisconsin, and now he consults other insurance departments. My brother Dave is a retired vice president with Allstate. So the only one that wasn't was my sister, who went into teaching. So we are kind of the insurance family. But I really appreciate the opportunity today to present you with some information that I hope can be helpful for everybody, and that it provides you with some good information and data. So with that said, with the people that are on it, I'm going to try to keep this general, but just is there anyone that is working currently for a company that's over 250 employees, just out of curiosity? No? Okay, that's good. Just want to know kind of where my audience is, although, and we're going to keep the discussion today really to those groups that are under, those employer groups that are under 250 lives. So, and if you guys want to just let me know, what size groups do you work with or work for? I'm not sure if I know you're a consultant, Mary, so you probably work with several different employers. But I don't know if Ryan or Lynn or Megan work for a specific company and what size that company might be.
I can go. So we have a unique niche in that we provide practice management solutions for veterinarian practices. So I'm the HR manager for not only Inova, but also our clients that we serve.
Okay.
So that's what I do.
So mostly smaller groups, I would assume, within the veterinarian space, correct?
Yes, sir. Equine and small animal. Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And speaking of animals, I won't get up because I don't have anyone working outside my current office today, but you may hear an animal. My dog it's not a barker, but you might actually hear that dog snoring. So, and I apologize for that.
That's cute.
What kind of dog, Steve?
King Cavalier Charles Spaniel. Yeah.
I have 2 cockers.
Okay.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Very cool.
All right. I'm just going to get the presentation pulled up here.
Steve, while you get that pulled up, I think Megan's company is around 50 people, unless they've had some recent growth spurt in the last 6 to 9 months. But I think her company's right around 50.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Well, good. I think it's good. Then I think it's very tailored to the audience we have today, and for anyone else that might be in the Fort Worth Human Resources group here. So, again, thank you for your time. We're going to cover some different areas today. Traditional benefit plans and what those challenges are. We're going to talk a lot about customization. Everybody likes something different. Mary, you don't like In-N-Out Burger. I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of it. It's good. But I live in Wisconsin, and our main fast food place here is Culver's, and everybody loves Culver's. I mean, they rave for it. My children do, my wife, everybody. I'm not a big Culver's fan either. It's okay, but I prefer a bar burger. But that's kind of the key. That's going to be the key to this presentation, is that we're going to talk a lot about customization, because everybody likes something different, and we want to make sure that we provide them with what they like, or an opportunity to get what they like. And so we're going to talk about those solutions today. And we broke it up into 2 parts. I really wanted to focus on ancillary benefits. That's really where my general agency, and I'm a benefit broker, but I'm also what's called a general agent. And so I have about 300 agents that work through me to get certain products, and I'm kind of the expert. So I'm the expert between the insurance carriers and the marketing arm of some insurance carriers as well. And I work directly with those independent benefit brokers that are out there. And I wanted to talk about the ancillary, and kind of focus on that, but we really can't do that properly without talking about the medical side of it too. And there are some things that I think I'm going to provide you for the medical that might be eye-opening. Some of you might, I would assume you deal with this, being in HR, and HR is a tough job. I've been in this 30 years, and I have such a respect for people that work in human resources. You guys are stuck in the middle between the owners and the executive teams, along with trying to help the employees, and it's just it's a tough job, and you really do great work. So I have high respect for anyone in the human resource field. Humans are tough to deal with. Dogs, much easier. So with that, we're going to start with medical insurance. And you probably know this, but I think it needs to be said because I don't think a lot of people say it. And maybe a lot of employers don't know it, but I think in HR you do. The plan that's chosen for medical is going to positively and negatively affect your workforce. Both. There's not one plan out there that's going to have just a positive effect and be great. It's very rare. And the reason why, even if the employer is paying 100% of the premium, it's very rare because of networks. I mean, you got networks. This is an example. Somebody's not going to want to go to that doctor network that you provide with the plan that you chose. And then plan design. Some people may not like the plan design. There's always going to be something that could negatively affect the workforce. And again, and equally positively affect them as well. 30 years doing this, I've never seen one plan that everybody loves and adores in the medical side. And health insurance is expensive. So that has a negative impact on maybe retaining employees as much as it can in helping attract new employees. Because everybody wants a medical plan to attract employees, but it doesn't always do exactly what it should. Okay, bear with me. I'm just reading a quick message. And so an example of that, employee contributions. Employee contributions, with the cost of healthcare nowadays, employee contributions are being increased. And so that can have a negative effect. And again, with plan design, with cost of healthcare, plan design is going up. In the old days, at least around here in Wisconsin, we had $100 deductibles, $0 deductibles, and now we have 3,000, 5,000 deductibles. It's a lot more out of pocket cost. And so once a medical plan is established, it's almost impossible to terminate, but people are nowadays. But it's very hard to terminate, and when that cost continues to increase, which leads to, again, more cost-sharing methods, which, again, negatively affects. It's kind of a spiral. It's a downward spiral. When you implement some of these plans, it can kind of take off on itself, and it's very hard to control. So that's the traditional part of fully insured medical plans, and that's what they are. The traditional models for small, and when I'm talking about SMBs, what that means is you may know, but if you don't, it's small to medium-sized businesses, and that's generally any business from 2 to 250 employees is what we're looking at. And the traditional model for those are generally HMO, point of service plans, or PPOs. But the solutions and what you can do to customize are level-funded medical plans, self-funded medical plans, marketplace options with QSARAs or ICRAs. And we're going to talk about the changing market segment as well. So to go into the level funded and self-funded, this was generally only, years ago. I've been doing it a lot longer. We've been in the level funded or partially self-funded business. My family, when I was with their general agency, we were selling these back in the 90s. They weren't very popular and they didn't take off. Now they're very popular due to ACA and cost rising. They're becoming more and more normalized, but level funded plans can actually go down to 2 employees, believe it or not. So with that said, there's 4 areas in level funded or self-funded plans that help the customization. And that is the funding options, plan options, provider access and claim management options, and underwriting. We're just going to touch on each of these, but they're flexible and they're able to be customized and flexible. So when it comes to the funding options, I'm going to talk just about level funded here. This is basically a level funded plan versus a fully insured plan. And this is why it's not a scary thing. Most people used to think with self funding, we're too small, we can't do it, it's risky, we can't take that risk. There really is no risk when it comes to level funded plans. No risk at all compared to a fully insured plan. And how it works is on a fully insured plan, you pay the premium, the insurance company pays the claims, you pay the full amount of the premium here, and the company pays the claims, and that's it. There's no opportunity for any real cost savings, except maybe your network that's in there for some reduction in negotiated fees. But if you look at level funded, the premiums and administration fees are fixed, just like a fully insured plan. But the claims, you have an opportunity as an employer to save money based on claims experience. So if you have a good year and you have very few claims, you're going to be able to save that money. That goes into your own account. The employer retains those funds, and then you can use those funds to either offset your renewal next year based on the premiums and administration, or keep it and use it for whatever you want, or keep rolling it over to create a fund. And so this is a unique way for employers to gain back some of that cost that's just been normally thrown to the insurance carriers. And they do make money. They're profitable. You can look up the insurance carriers' profits. They make a lot of money. This is a way for you to save on some of that money. And the funding options with this is minimum, which means if you choose minimum, there is no claims amount. You just pay the claims as they come in each month. You can do an expected amount based on actuarial figures that we provide, and that usually covers all the claims, but it could go more where you have to pay the maximum. Or you can just pay the maximum, which is the same as you can see as the fully insured. So if the fully insured, let's just use $10,000 a month for a small business, is the fully insured premium, and it's $10,000 for the level funded, you can pay that and never have to worry about dealing with the funds until the end of the year if you want to deal with them, take them, or just roll them over. So it gives you options. Again, customization and options, which you don't have in a fully insured plan. The advantage in the provider access realm is this. Remember, the traditional plans are HMOs, PPOs, and point of service plans. Here, the options are PPO, which is typical, but also reference-based pricing and fair market pricing. And so the difference in those, reference-based pricing, if you don't know what that is, now physicians, doctor office visits, prescriptions, things like that are based on the PPO plan. Those are normal. But when it comes to inpatient, outpatient, hospitalizations, things where there's larger dollar figures, that's where on reference-based pricing, the company comes in and negotiates with that provider. So a reference-based pricing model typically pays, I have fat fingers. This is not the first time that's going to happen. It happens every time I do a presentation. And the reference-based pricing basically indexes to Medicare. And so we're going to pay a portion of that based on Medicare indexing and the Medicare cost. Generally 120, 130% is what we're going to argue for. And PPOs they pay more than that. But we're going to have our team negotiate, or I should say the insurance carriers team negotiate those to try to reduce what they're charging you at the provider's office. And fair market pricing is basically a little bit different. They incorporate geographic and provider-specific benchmarks to negotiate the premium. They don't base it off of Medicare and what that is indexed to. So a little bit different ways that they do it. However, this is what it typically means. If you have $1 for a cost of service under a PPO plan, that's typically going to be 20% less with fair market pricing, because we're going to be able to negotiate that down. Again, this is for inpatient, outpatient hospitals and large claims. And we're going to be able to negotiate that down. Whereas with the reference-based pricing, it's even lower than that at 72 cents. Because we're able to negotiate a little bit further with that. So it really provides some additional savings for a group. And what that savings does is it reduces the price of what we looked at before, the premiums and administration costs. So it's going to reduce the overall cost. So instead of paying $10,000 on a fully insured, you might be looking at $8,000 total on a level funded plan that has reference-based pricing or fair market pricing as the claims management option. And I could do an hour on level funded, self-funded, and all these different areas. I'm just trying to give you a basic overview. The plan options are traditional, are the deductible copay, but we can also do high deductible plans, HSA qualified. Multiple plan offerings are much easier to do with self-funded or with a level funded plan because they're using a TPA, generally speaking, for the administration of those level funded or self-funded plans versus insurance carriers that have don't have as much flexibility in their administrative systems that they have. And so the non-traditional coverage also is available with fully self-funded only. And that might be something where an employer wants something covered, but the insurance company isn't going to cover it, but they still want it in the plan and the employer is willing to pay for it. We can do that. We can put everything in there. Heck, not for Mary so much, but maybe for Ryan, we could put in, a free lunch at Panda once a week in the benefit plan if they wanted it. The California Panda, not the Texas one. So those kind of things can be done with a self-funded plan. It provides a lot of flexibility. And the underwriting options are different. Obviously, with ACA up to 50 employees, it's guaranteed issue. But with a level funded or self-funded plan, they generally ask for medical questions with an application, just like we used to do before ACA. And then there are some, though, that offer no medical. So we have some reinsurance carriers that will allow us to quote them that are from down to 2 lives to 150 lives without medical questions. And they use data that's already out there in a lot of different areas that they can pull from. And then there's experience rated, where they go from your claims versus your premium, your loss ratio, so to speak. And this is the other neat thing about a level funded or self-funded plan is it gives the employers the ability to actually see what's going on in their group. Know where their group is as far as claims go, as far as shock loss, which is just basically somebody maybe that has a cancer or a heart attack or a big condition that can cause a big claim. And it allows them then to negotiate in the future. That's something that fully insured plans don't share and don't allow you to do. And then they also use census data. So that's kind of the underwriting options when it comes to those level funded and self-funded plans. Now, for the individual market, the marketplace, that is a great way to move forward. A lot of people are doing it. And before, when ACA came out, these plans were implemented a few years ago, and one's called the QSERA. It's a Qualified Small Employer Health Reimbursement Arrangement. So this is basically where an employer says, I'm going to give you a fixed dollar amount for each employee, and you go out to the marketplace and buy your insurance. And that's a great way to be able to do it. Or it was a great way that we used to be able to do it. It's very similar to the defined contribution approach I'm going to talk about with ancillary here in a little bit. But there are some catches with it. So with the QSERA, it's limited to businesses with fewer than 50 full-time equivalent employees. They limit the contribution amount by single and family. It cannot be offered in conjunction with a group health policy. Oh, and there I go again. And the premium tax credit is reduced by the HRA allowance. And so what that means is the example here is if a person is going to get a $400 subsidy off the marketplace and the employer is contributing $200, then the subsidy that they'll get from the government is only $200. So it's going to subtract from the ACA subsidy that's available. And then an ICRA has no size restrictions on the size of businesses, no allowance amount restrictions. It can be offered in conjunction with certain group health policies, but there's no premium tax credit allowed. So if an employee qualifies for a $400 subsidy and the employer is going to give $200, they get no subsidy. The subsidy is not there. They have to pick up the difference. And these two plans were really good. They were really great when it initially started because not everyone qualified for subsidies. So these plans were very popular. They worked very well. I have agents that sell these QSERA plans. That's what they did. They went in, they broke up small group health insurance, and they put everyone on to a QSERA because there were some at the time they could kind of double dip on the premium subsidy thing with their taxes. That's now been shored up. But really, these have both unfortunately been rendered useless since March 11th of last year. And that's when ARPA came into effect, the American Rescue Plan Act. Because now the subsidies are so great, they're so big with the ARPA Act that it just doesn't become feasible for the employer to spend money that's going to be there for the majority of their group when it comes to a subsidy. So here's a case study. I just quoted this person in Fort Worth, Texas. 40, that should say 38. I apologize. I hit the wrong button, but it was a 40-year-old male, 38-year-old spouse, 10-year-old child, annual salary of $50,000. Their subsidy monthly is $886. I mean, that is very high, and the bronze level plans are free for that person, so it's very hard to compete. The silver level starts at $116, and even the gold level is less than that, starting at $75. So the choices they have are great, and the cost for an entire family on a gold level plan at $75 or free for a bronze is very hard for a small employer to compete with a group medical plan. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And so I'll give you an example of that. A buddy of mine has a construction company here. I grew up with him in high school. For years, tried to talk to him about insurance. He never wanted to offer. It wasn't at a point where he could offer benefits to his construction employees, but now he wanted to. He had 17 employees. He said, Steve, I want to do this. I want to look at group medical plans. Well, in a group medical plan, as you may or may know, there's generally a minimum requirement if the employer contribute 50% of the employee's premium. So I ran a number of different quotes with a number of different carriers for my friend. His name is Dale. And showed him that the average amount for a single was $338. And Dale said, I just can't afford that. That's not in my budget to be able to afford. I could do 200. So let's look at that QSARA you talked about, Steve, and let's do that at 200. Well, then I looked at that and I took all of his employees, 17 employees, went out to the marketplace with their salaries and information, and I quoted them in the marketplace. Only 3 employees didn't qualify for a subsidy that was greater than the $200 that Dale wanted to offer. And that was Dale, his partner, and one other manager. And they were all covered through spouses anyways. So it made no sense for Dale to contribute $200 to just reduce the government's costs when that could have just been given to them through the subsidies. And so he realized that, employers are smart. They realized that right away. They're like, this doesn't make sense. And so what Dale did is he took that extra money and put it towards the ancillary benefits for his employees. But we had really good communication, and that's what you have to do. And luckily Dale didn't have a medical plan, so we weren't disbanding one, and we just explained to the employees exactly how it worked, and that they were going to get better plans, more customized plans on the marketplace, and it was going to be cheaper for them all around. And so they were fine with it once they understood exactly what we understood and what we were explaining to them. And that $886 here for this person in Fort Worth, that can be used in any of the companies. Oscar, United Healthcare, Friday Plans, Molina, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas. And that really allows them the choices again that we were talking about and that we're going to talk about in the ancillary. With that said, I talk kind of fast, and I want you guys to know if there's a question, if you guys want to speak up or have a question about something specifically when I'm talking about it, feel free. I'm pretty easygoing. I get moving and I kind of forget to let you know that if you have a question, I want you to feel free to just chime on in. So medical insurance, as we can see, is changing. You look at phones. We had the bag phones in 1980s, but year 2000s we had the flip phones. Now we have a full computer in our pocket that we can't run our lives without. And it's all the different apps, all the different customization on it. And so things are just changing fast when it comes to technology and also when it comes to medical plans. And so here's an example. And this is an example of why if an employer doesn't currently have a medical plan, maybe it's not the best thing to get into right away. Maybe it's best to let them go into the marketplace. Maine is looking to merge their individual and small group health insurance markets. And the Department of Insurance is doing that because individual health insurance has been stable, but premiums for small group are rising and enrollment is declining. And that has a lot to do with brokers that I have that go out and disband smaller groups because it's more of a cost savings for an employer. And employers are hit hard with all the rising inflation and costs that we have now. Something has to give somewhere, and this is one way to do it. Massachusetts and Vermont already merged their individual small group markets. North Dakota is looking to do so as well. So times are changing. I think this is kind of an inroad to what's going to become national health insurance. I think ACA was the start of that. Adding more of the subsidies with ARPA adds to that. And now with the small group going away, I think we might have national for at least smaller employer groups. And it seems to be moving in that direction.
So Steve,
Steve.
question, do we know how long the American Rescue Plan is going to exist?
I do not.
Okay,
Generally with,
there's not an end in sight, so to speak.
I don't believe they have any sunset on it.
Okay.
Nope. And that's fairly, and even when government puts a sunset on something, they tend to get renewed, especially when there's and this is popular. I mean, you know, that person, you know, when we look back at that example I gave, I want to go back to it really quick. This was at 50,000 salary and think, oh, that's 50,000. I quoted the same person at 100,000. They're still getting a $308 subsidy monthly at $100,000 a year income. So you can see where the subsidies have really gone, and they're up there. And so I think that's here to stay. I don't see it going away. So, you know, with that said, there's benefits of not implementing a group medical plan for those employers that currently don't have one. And it's having their employees purchase it through the marketplace. You know, it's guaranteed issue now, just like group insurance always has been. The subsidies are available to help them afford the premiums. They get the carrier choice, the network choice, and their plan design choice. They like that. People like choices. And if you're going to disband a current group medical program, I highly recommend you review the current participation, contributions, offerings, make sure you know exactly how the plan is working, the costs, everything, and then have very thorough communication with and understanding and buy-in from the employees. Because doing it just kind of willy-nilly can easily disrupt employees. You can lose employees, and you know the whole point of benefits is to retain, not to lose. But with that said, once you remove something, even if the employees have the buy-in, they understand why, and they're saving money, you still need to add additional ancillary benefits because it still is perceived as taking something away. And so to add something would be great, and the money that the employer saves or part of it can easily be put into ancillary benefits that help the employees. And that leads us into our ancillary benefit discussion. So the strategy is using benefits to attract and retain top talent. That's what the title of this was. And we know that most employers, 83%, choose retaining employees as their top objective. Over half said using benefits to retain is even more important in the next 3 to 5 years. And nearly half, Mary, just so you know, we're on the ancillary side now. Nearly half of the HR professionals cited employee retention and turnover is their top workforce management challenge, and 85% said their organization used benefits as a strategic tool to positively affect recruitment and retention. Now, with that said, from what I explained to you earlier, using medical can sometimes not positively affect. But when it comes to ancillary, it's very rare that it's not a positive effect. Ancillary is very stable. So let me just give you an example. So voluntary benefits, which are generally ancillary, medical is usually you're fully insured, as is some dental. And so with that said, the voluntary benefits that are offered, if you look here, this is from Ease. So Ease is the online enrollment and administration system that I use for all of my groups. A lot of my agents use it. There's a lot of different ones that are out there. There's Employee Navigator, Benefit Focus. Those are generally for larger companies. Ease is the best one I found for small to medium-sized businesses. That's why we use it. They had a 2022 small to medium-sized benefit insight report from all the data that they collect. They have 75,000 employers and 2.5 million employees in their small to medium-sized business market in their software. And so 1 to 10 employees, and we're just going to look at 2021, 2.37 plans are being offered for 1 to 10 lives on a voluntary basis. And that's because, folks, it's very difficult to implement a lot of benefits for smaller employers, which you may all agree with and know and have experienced because of participation requirements and because of employer contribution requirements. Heck, even on a voluntary vision plan, dental plan, they could require 30% participation on a fully voluntary plan. That would not quite meet what people need. And so you might only have one person that wants dental in a smaller group. So that's why there's very limited voluntary plans being offered for these smaller groups. And as it goes up in size, even up to 250, it's only 5.73 plans that are being offered. And again, we talked about customization. We know people want what they want. They want certain things. And those certain things aren't available. Those benefits aren't generally available in the individual market. And if they are, they're a lot more expensive. And then underwriting is also a consideration. So when you look at all the companies in the small to medium-sized business market, three and a half plans is what's being offered. So, under a traditional benefit package, employers make decisions based on the perceived general needs of all their employees. And that traditional approach, the employer's not getting their return on investment, their return on dollars, and they're not meeting the actual needs of their employees. They're trying, God bless them, they're trying, but the perceived needs don't equal actual needs. And employers can only do so much with the dollars that they have and the money they have allocated for benefits. So as a human resource professional, under a traditional model, if you add more benefits, that's going to be more work for you. And that's going to mean more potential problems and more stress. I don't think any of you ever looked like this woman on here, but maybe you have. And that more work is there because, certain things like participation. Again, I'm sure maybe you've been in a position where we're trying to implement a new program, maybe vision, maybe dental, maybe something like that. And you had to go around and say, okay, we need one more or two more employees to be able to get this benefit. We need to round them up to be able to get this, to offer it, because we need that minimum participation requirement, or we're not able to offer it. That creates a lot of work, a lot of stress for human resources. What we've developed with the defined contribution approach is the solution, and it makes you happier because the work is gone. In fact, the defined contribution plan approach will actually, in most cases, allow you to do less work, even with the current benefits that you might be providing to your employer that you work with. So I'm going to take a quick, if you guys have any questions, let me know. I see some chats coming in. I'm just going to take a quick look. Oh, it's you guys chatting back and forth. Okay. Didn't know if it was questions.
Yeah, you can, Steve, if we have a question, I'll interrupt you.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Doris. You're awesome. So customization is the key. We customize absolutely everything in our lives, from our coffee, very particular in our coffees, to our Spotify, to our apps on our phone. And why shouldn't we have the same ability to do that when it comes to benefits? And really, there's very few opportunities for that now until the defined contribution plan came along. So 76% of millennials and 67% of baby boomers said customization was important for increasing their loyalty to their employers. I want to read that again. 76% of millennials, 67% of baby boomers said that customization was important. Yet it's very hard for employers to do. And you got to consider that multi-generational workforce. The silent generation, the baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, Generation Z, everybody has unique needs, unique situations that they need help or they need coverage for. And as an employer, you want to be able to meet all those, and as an HR professional, you want to help your employer meet those, but it's very hard to do. So keeping that in mind, the defined contribution plan helps that. It helps provide all those so you can recruit and retain. And we're going to talk about some of those retention strategies. We're going to talk about fixed costs per employee. So the employer can actually budget the amount they want to spend per employee. Generally, when it comes to ancillary products, whether it's life insurance or disability, you're chasing dollars. You're chasing a lower rate on per 10 cents for short-term disability, or per 1,000 for life insurance. And then when you get rate increases, which happen, then as an employer, your employer contribution goes up as well. This gives an employer, even small employers, a fixed dollar amount to work with, a budget. And no one ever talks to employers about a budget that they can stick to and keep as long as they want to keep it for benefits. This plan allows that. It does offer big business benefits, but on a small business budget. And it maximizes the return on investment for those dollars for that employer. And in the end, all this just increases employee satisfaction, morale, and loyalty to the employer. So on the recruiting and retention strategy, what we offer, 9 different benefits. Remember, in the screen I showed you before from the EASE report, 3.5 was the average for all small to medium-sized businesses. Now, an employer, even as small as 2 lives, 10 lives, whatever it might be, can offer 9 different benefits to their employees. And it's easy for you as a HR person to administer and to offer. You don't have to do the chasing around like you did before. We offer unique benefit plans to incentivize retention. So an example of that would be our dental program. Dental program that offers a $100 lifetime deductible versus an annual deductible. That helps with retention. I have a personal Groupon with a $100 lifetime deductible with a carrier here in Madison. been with us 20 years. They met their deductible once 20 years ago. They still have the plan. Keeps people. Complements other benefit offerings. So, if we're going to talk about telemedicine, and regardless of what you choose for medical or your employer has for medical or what you're working with for one of your clients, a telemedicine program can complement it. And it does in almost every case, especially if they're level funded or self funded, because then the claims, the utilization goes to the telemedicine provider and not to those claims that people are trying to keep reduced to save money. So it's very good for self-funded and level funded. But your employers, companies will have the benefit of customizing their benefit plan to their employees, while at the same time giving the employees the choice of selecting the benefits that they want. So think of it as handing them a gift card to the benefit store. It's a fixed cost per employee. The minimum employer contribution starts at $25 per employee per month. So for a 10-person group, you can offer, for $250, you can offer multiple benefits that exceed the 3.5 average that the rest of the country is offering their employees. And then the employees, if they want more, they can buy up via payroll deduction. So if they go over that 25 or whatever whatever the employer decides, $50, $100, we have some really unique employers that offer unique ways to work with this defined contribution, also to help with the retention. And I'm going to show you a sample of that here at the end. But the minimum is 10 lives generally for these plans. However, with an association or chamber plan, those can be reduced to 2 lives, down to 2 lives. And then the key is no participation requirements. And I want to talk about that. So we have 9 different benefits here. And if you implement this defined contribution plan, there are no participation requirements, which means, let's just use a 10-person group as an example, small group. If only one person wants dental, we're going to issue them that dental contract. And there's not another group health insurance carrier or a group ancillary carrier out there that does that outside of a defined contribution plan. So there's no participation requirements, which makes it super simple for HR. You guys don't have to worry about that. It takes that off your plate. And then the employer can choose any combination of these benefits to make available to the employees through the online portal. And think of these as modular. So, look at Basic Life. Basic Life is the one benefit that does require 100% participation. But it's with the employer's money. So if the employer is providing $100 and the Basic Life is $2, that still leaves the employee with $98 to spend on the rest of the benefits if they want it. And so it's the employer's money, but some employers, like the example I'm going to show you later, they don't want to force their employees to get anything. So we can just remove that Basic Life module. Just take it out and not offer it, and then you're good to go. We're very flexible. The voluntary life insurance, that can go up to $100,000 guaranteed issue. Short-term disability is in there. Again, we talked a little bit about dental. You got vision, critical illness, legal benefits, identity theft protection, telemedicine benefits, very comprehensive. And I'm not going to go into the details of all the benefits because there's lots of different carriers that we use, depending on where you're at in the group and so forth. But as you know, this is a big offering for small businesses. And this allows a smaller business to compete with those larger multinational and bigger companies that are offering a lot more benefits. So it really levels the playing field.
Yes, perfect timing. A question just came in. What size companies do you find want telemedicine?
All over the board. Generally, telemedicine has been for larger employers. In fact, for full disclosure, I use Teladoc, which is Healthiest You out of Arizona. They're one of the largest in the nation. They've always worked with larger, but since we brought them into this defined contribution plan, I mean, we're seeing groups down to 2 lives that have chose they want telemedicine, because the small group, trust me, has just as much out of pocket as a large group. And telemedicine is fantastic because if a small group, to get group health insurance, or if they have an individual plan and a $3,000 deductible and maybe an HSA plan at $3,000, they get sick, they got to go to the doctor. That doctor is going to cost them $200-$300 maybe, depending on where you're at. And they're going to have to pay that, and then they may get a prescription drug. Well, with this, they can use the telemedicine, be from home. They don't have to go to a provider, a clinic where, obviously people are sick at clinics. And with COVID, a lot of people don't want to go into a hospital unless they have to, just for, the sake of trying to stay safe. Now they can do it from their own home, from their phone or iPad, talk to the doctor, get that covered, and not worry about having to pay the deductible on it.
The reason I brought that up is, I have, actually, it was my first client many years ago. And it's a dental company that owns multiple dental practices.
Mhm.
And some of the dental offices, are in remote areas, and they don't have the same quick access to doctors. So, but it's been a couple of years ago, but there was some complication with that. Honestly, I don't remember what it was, but it made me, your presentation made me think about it. That even being remote, they had some difficulties with using remote. Have you experienced in any companies that have had any issues
No,
specifically?
not really, because if you can't do a video chat, if it becomes a internet thing because you're remote, you can still do it on the phone. So they take phone calls or video chats, and I haven't specifically run into that problem. I can't say there's not problems out there. I mean, depending on how remote somebody is, that certainly could happen. But these companies, just like everything's evolving nowadays, so are these companies, and they're getting to realize that they have to work for all size groups, and it's not just large groups they're after. The large big employers. The majority of the workforce in the United States are employees that are under 100 lives, and then the majority of that are under 20 employees. So they realize they need to be able to work with them and to provide access and services to them as well. I hope that helps. So, talking about the return on investment now, we're getting into that section. Remember this, the perceived needs do not equal the actual needs. We need the customization. So I'm going to give you a sample of how the return on investment works with that. So this is a case study. This is a 40-person employer out of Peoria, Illinois. And under the traditional plan that they had, the employer was offering and paying 100% for the basic life, which is typical in any life insurance policy, group life insurance. 100% for the single dental, so just for the employee dental. They were paying 50% for the short-term disability, splitting that cost evenly with the employee. And then they weren't paying anything for voluntary life. That was 100% on the employee. So the employer was excited about the fixed costs in the budget, like we discussed, and the employee choice. And both of those elements are really important because that employer was changing health benefits because they were attempting to manage the rising cost of their health benefits. So they wanted to do something to help offset that, because they were looking at higher deductibles and more out of pocket, which we talked about earlier. So the employer gave them an allowance of $34.88 for their defined contribution. And you might think, well, that's a weird number, but that was what they figured out for the basic life, the single dental, and the disability split, what they were paying per employee. And they wanted to keep their costs the same. So that's what they offered them. So then they elected, with the defined contribution plan, the same basic life, voluntary term life, short term, and dental, but they added vision. And so they were able to add a new plan into that while they were dealing with some of their medical issues, their medical plan issues. The average employee spend was about 2 times that amount, $67.95. So the employees needed and wanted benefits, and they're fine with paying it. It's just like a voluntary program. After that defined contribution is depleted, the employees spent another $34.88, a little bit more than that on this one. So it's almost 2 times on the spend. So the employees wanted benefits. And some of that could have been the employee using all of their money now for the dental for a family plan. But what did the employees elect? Here's what they elected: 100% participation in the life, 80% in the voluntary term life. And these are the 2 key ones, guys. I want you to look at this. Participation in the short-term disability and the dental was at 58%. Remember, previously, the employer was paying 100% of the dental single premium and 50% for all the employees for the short term. Now, only just a little over half wanted short term and dental. That employer was not getting a good return for their investment on the previous traditional plan that they had. But now they're paying the same amount. And as you can see, the employees are choosing what they actually want. So now the employer is getting a full return on investment for that $34.88 per employee. And then 70% chose vision. And that might be where more of the increase came on the actual spend. So the employer was initially taken back at this because they had been paying those premiums on those benefits. But after further review, it just reinforced the tremendous value in allowing employees to select what they need and want. And the employer increased their ROI by having both the fix and cost and their employees, and allowing their employees to use the benefits they want. And the employees had to maximize their ROI by being empowered to spend that employer's money on funds that aligned with their individual needs. So a win-win for everybody around. Our second case study is 25 employees here in Madison, where I'm from, Madison, Wisconsin. The employer was only interested when we initially met with them in medical and dental, for the same reasons that most companies only choose a limited amount of benefits. It's affordability. It's the nuisance factor of trying to have too many benefit plans and make them work with smaller employers. It's hard to do until now. So when we presented them with the defined contribution approach, they immediately said yes, and now they're in their 5th year with us. And this company was unique on how they set up their defined contribution. So here's what the company actually looked like. We did add medical in here. And so the medical, as you can see, 10 people out of the 25 took the medical. So not everyone's going to take medical because of the issues that we discussed previously. But they offered dental, life, short-term disability, vision, and legal and identity theft services for the defined contribution plan for this employer. And look at the highlights. Everybody has different things that they wanted because every employee is at a different stage of life, has different things that are important to them. And so they were able to take the money provided by this employer and get the benefits that they wanted. And this employer had a unique system on their defined contribution. I've since seen it happen more often, but what they did is they offered a certain amount of defined contribution for a single and a family that were 1 to 5 years of service with their company. And then from 5 to 9 years of service with their company, they offered a higher amount for single and family contributions. And then if you were 10 years plus, they offered different amounts. So they offered from the very bottom 30, where is it? Right here. Here's the defined contribution amount in this row, DC amount. They offered $32.50 for a single that was 1 to 5 years, all the way up to $227.50 a month for families that had been with them for more than 10 years. So it incentivized retention with their company, which is really interesting. And as you can see here, here's what they actually spent an employee. So this employee, let's just use number 3 here. They spent $76.69. They had a $97.50 defined contribution amount. So they did not spend $20. The beauty of the defined contribution plan is you don't need to pay this employee that $20.81. That's another savings for the employer. So very rare does the defined contribution amount allotted actually come to the dollar figure that the employer pays. It's usually less. And so anyone with a negative didn't spend up to their defined contribution. Anyone that did or went over, here was the weekly, bi-weekly deduction, payroll deduction. And as you can see, it's about half and half. You know, I look at it this way. Just want to make sure I'm wrapping up on time here. My brother, you know, it's like that gift card to the benefit store. It's like a gift card to a food place. And I'm a foodie, obviously, as a competitive eater, previous competitive eater. You know, if you gave a gift card to like my brother-in-law and it was $50, he would calculate, he's an engineer, he would calculate exactly how much it would be with tip to give you at $49.99. If you gave me a $50 gift card to a restaurant, I'm gonna spend $100 and eat. And if you put my brother-in-law and me next to each other, you would see the why I spend twice as much because I'm about twice the size as he is. But that's what we usually find. About half the group spends under, about half spends over. So this leads to the increased employee satisfaction. Employees love this program. And they love choosing the benefits they want. How many times in HR have you been, you know, in a benefit meeting? It's hard enough to get the employees to come to be happy. You usually got to coax them with some food or something. But they sit there and they cross their arms and they're like, I'm not buying nothing. I'm not doing anything, right? We've all been there. And as a guy who used to sell voluntary benefits, you know, my job was to sell that to earn commission in the old days. Now I can actually truly just consult and say, no, I'm here. Your employer's giving you $100 a month or $50 a month or $25, whatever it might be a month. I'm just here to help you buy whatever you need and want. And if you don't want anything, that's fine. You don't have to take anything because we don't have to worry about participation requirements. So it makes it just a more enjoyable experience. And by the end Almost all employees just love this program. I've never had an employee that hasn't. I mean, in the 5 years I've been working with defined contribution, there's a few that don't want it, and that's fine. They don't have to take it, and then they're just done and over. So even at the minimum contribution at $25, they're thankful to their employer for the plan. It's really interesting to see, something I haven't seen in my 30 years of being in benefits. So ancillary and especially the defined contribution plans, they are stable. Medical is not stable, folks. It changes. These is something that an employer can offer to their employees that's going to be stable and there, and that helps with retention, helps with employee satisfaction. And the rate increases are really minimal. About the only rate increases we really get with the defined contribution plan, for groups that are there. We got there's generally a 2-year guarantee, but it really comes with dental. The rest of the rates stay very stable. They rarely ever change. So talk a little bit about enrollment. Very easy. Quotes for this are also easy. We don't need census, so you just need employer location, the number of full-time employees, SIC code for groups under 100. But on a defined contribution basis, the employer chooses the plan to offer. The employer signs the group carrier apps. The employer sets up an in-person or online benefit overview meeting. I've done many online since COVID. Broker sends employees the online link. So their broker will send the online link to Ease or whatever platform they may be using, Employee Navigator. So you pair that defined contribution plan with the online services that are easy to enroll and easy to manage, and you got a great benefit program that everyone's very happy about. Again, we talked about my general agency, and most of my agents use Ease. The cost to the employer is free with Ease, so it's nothing that an employer has to pay for. Ease also offers, I want to talk a little bit about it because I've done a lot of research before I started working with online and decided to invest in the system that I have. And I found that Ease is great for small to medium-sized businesses, for businesses under 250 employees. They also offer free onboarding, so HR admins can create and send offer letters, ensure assigned W-4, I-9 forms, and direct deposit and info is stored securely in the cloud. You have access to that. You can send that with the benefit enrollment right away. It just simplifies the life of an HR administrator. They do have HRS integration through Ease HR. So if you wanted a full HRIS system, that's always so hard to say, HRIS system, you can get it. They have integration with TPAs for COBRA, HRAs, FSAs. Here's just a couple of the ones that are available. They have payroll integration. So if you wanted to put payroll into it, they have Heartland, Velocity, ADP, all the major ones that are in it. So with that said, I really want to thank you for your time. We're 5 minutes to the end here, and that leaves it open for any questions that you might have or comments you want to make. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. I'm so glad we're partners. Thank you.
Gotcha.
But any questions?
I did have one quick question, and it's probably an easy one. Have you ever encountered where somebody doesn't spend all the money? So let's say the employer gives them $25 a month, I think was your example. What if they only spend $20 a month? What happens to the remaining $5?
It's a great question. Yep. And the remaining $5 does not have to be paid to the employee. So the remaining $5 stays with the employer. So again, it saves them even more money. I'll just quickly jump to here just to show you an example of that again. As you can see here, if there's a negative here, like the negative 2081, they spent 7669 of the 9750. They didn't spend it all. So that money stays with the employer. So very rarely does the full amount of defined contribution that an employer budgets for is ever used, because some employees just they just don't need it. So again, that goes back to return on investment for an employer. What a great return on investment. They're not just buying it because they have the money, or the employer's not just paying for it because he needs to do so with a participation rate. It goes back to that employer. And when you see a big one like this is just because this person was actually a spouse of two employees that work at the same company, and they were only giving one defined contribution out. So for these benefits, just to let you know, because it seems like, wow, that's a lot. They didn't spend, but that's what it comes down to. So the other great thing is you get 100% participation, which means all of your employees are happy because they've gotten something that they wanted and needed. Does that help? Awesome. Any other questions?
Thank you.
I hope you found it helpful today, folks.
You know, what I have found throughout my career in HR is that HR professionals um, are subject matter experts in various aspects of HR, payroll, safety, whatever. And I think what I've heard is that these benefits, especially when you get into, you know, more complicated ones and, you know, 401ks and some other things, they struggle with this. A lot of HR professionals, and to for the benefits brokers, the ones that actually go into really good explanation are going to do best with these smaller companies. And the fact that some laws have changed, you know, which you presented here too, for that down to 2 people can have a plan. I remember the days when you had to have a minimum of way more than 2. And so with those changes, and then again, these really tiny companies, they just don't know anything, but their own job, right? So I think giving explanation like this, even to a lot of HR professionals that are just not benefits subject matter experts,
Sure.
is good and important. So thank you.
You betcha. Thank you, Mary.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Just to let everybody know, one of the main things that reasons I invited Steve was to tell us about this ARPA, the American Rescue Plan, because I feel like in my experience being out in the field, there's so many small companies that are like beating themselves up because they can't pay, you know, for medical, but they didn't realize that ARPA has increased the contribution so greatly that they were relieved, you know, that they could send their employees. In Steve's example, all but 3 of the employees qualified, and one of them was the owner. So as long as he was making his employees happy and giving them some options, it was just like the light bulb went off, like, wow, there are so much better options now that the employer doesn't have to pay for out of pocket. So thank you. Yes, Steve, this was very timely.
It's nice to be able to do that. I mean, I look at my daughter is a chiropractor, and she works at a small office, just 2 doctors and an employee. And you know, they didn't believe we could offer benefits like this. And we actually have the Wisconsin Chiropractic Association, and so we were able to go down to 2 lives with the defined contribution plan. And they were able to get the benefits that they needed. And being chiropractors, they're not fond of the medical side of it. They don't like going in there, and so but they were able to get that on their own, you know, or a version of it through the marketplace, and they were able to then take the extra money that they're saving and not having a group medical plan and provide it for themselves and their employee using that defined contribution approach. Which was very affordable for them, and then allows them to help attract new employees, because we know it's hard to, it's an employee market out there today. They can kind of pick and choose where they want to go. So just because everybody needs help.
Exactly. Well, guys, I want to encourage everyone. If you want to put your LinkedIn link in the chat so we can connect with each other on LinkedIn if we aren't connected already, so we can stay in touch. And then Mary, next month, Mary secured us an amazing speaker on compensation. This is benefits and compensation. So mark your calendars next month for the 2nd Wednesday, same link, same time, 11:30 Central, the 2nd Wednesday of April, which is April 13th. And this is a phenomenal speaker. I'm sorry, Mary, go ahead. I was supposed to to hand it over to you to talk about this.
No, it's all good. No, it's all good. And yeah, the 13th, and for the record, she is definitely seasoned expert, but she's got the SPHR certification and the CEBS. Okay, so she really knows what she's talking about with compensation, and she knows benefits too, but not in this capacity. I've worked with her for a long time. She presents at HR Southwest Conference every year, and really phenomenal. Oh,
Sorry, I figured I'm done.
so look forward to that. I'm gonna have to go out and find my LinkedIn link to put on here.
Okay.